us, Connie, what's the number one thing a new homeschool mom needs to get?
Abby, that's not fair because I have 5 different kids.
Hey everyone, this is Yvette Hampton. Welcome back to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast. I am so glad you have joined me again today. I am back with Abby Ranella.
Whoa! No one's going to know who that is when you say Abby Ranella.
I did say Abinella. Abinella. We need a song for you. Some kind of a Abinella jingle.
A jingle.
Or a poem or something. All right. If anyone listening to this has gotten to know Abinella and wants to come up with an Abinella song or poem or jingle, let us know. And Abby will sing it. I will not.
That'll be the not most listened to episode ever.
We are back with Connie Albers, and we're doing questions and answers with a veteran homeschool mom. And we're so grateful for Connie and just for her wisdom and expertise. Mm-hmm. She has graduated all 5 of her kids. She homeschooled them kindergarten through high school. All 5 of her kids went on to college on academic scholarships. They've all now graduated from college, and they are all doing just splendidly in their adult life and
so it works.
Serving the Lord. It works.
It works.
It works. And I love your humility, Connie, in that in the last episode, you were just talking about how you didn't know it all. You were not the perfect mom. You didn't know how to teach all the subjects, but God equipped you, and He allowed you to be able to do what you did with your kids and to get them all the way through school. And so there is no need to fear. God is faithful. He is going to get us through these important years of homeschooling and parenting and raising up our kids to love Jesus. So, Abby, do you have the next question, or do you want me to?
Well, I have a question. Can I intervene from the list?
Yes, of course.
We're doing a lot of questions on the kids, but I have a mom question that, okay, so this is a little about me. I have a hard time looking at old pictures of my kids because I feel like I'm mourning the loss of my babies and my toddlers. And every mom has said to me, oh, by the time they're in high school, they've just kind of readied you to get out. Like by then, just all their high school teenage issues, you're ready for them to be gone. And I don't think I'm going to feel that way. I have heard that so much. And a friend of mine said the other day, that's not true. Like, you will miss them. It's going to be hard, and it's okay to mourn that. But it was like salve to my soul, because I'm like, I'm having a preteen right now, and I'm like, yeah, there's issues, but I don't want her gone, for goodness sake. So
some days, no.
I mean, there are days where I'm like, grandma's house sounds great for a little while. But can you just talk to me and the moms, how did you handle this? Is there any way to prepare for it, or do you just hit the wall, mourn for a while, cry, and you just do what you have to do to move on? Because this is our whole life, Connie. As you know, this is every waking moment that we are giving to these kids.
Yeah, I think we have bought the world's lie about 18 and done, 18 and out. You've had enough of them. They've had enough of you. So maybe I'm probably not that mom, because I do remember it was my oldest son. It was his last basketball game. They were playing district to get ready to go to state, and we were all cheering. The whole crowd was there. And I stood there, and I could remember the school colors that they were playing, because they played competitive basketball, was like a maroon and white. And we were royal blue and white. And I was watching him go up and down, and it went into overtime. And I can picture it, and it almost brings me to tears thinking about, he made this last shot, and the score was tie. If we won, we were going on to state. If we didn't, that was it. And I remember leaning against the byline, because I just had to leave the bleachers. I was so thinking, oh my gosh, oh my. And all of a sudden they shot and they missed the basket, which meant they were out of the competition. And I started bawling. I just thought, I'm never, and see, it brings me to tears now.
It's your last basketball game.
Going to watch him play basketball ever again, because he went on to college and chose not to play basketball. And I can just remember that moment. And when he graduated, I just remembered the uncertainty of, what's it going to be like? What will he want to be around us? Will I want to be around him? And so Tom and my attitude was, no, 18 isn't, it's not like some magical number. we were all about generational living, and we were probably a little ahead of our time because most of our friends were like, hey, our kids are out at 18, you know, and I'm like, why? I actually like them.
I know.
You know, they can work and they can start paying their own bills. This is kind of fun. So Abby, I don't think with your first few, you're really able to truly put into, you can't prepare yourself for how you're going to react until you're in the moment. But when you're in that moment, savor it. And like now, just savor the beauty of the relationship, knowing that for 12 years or 13 years or however many years, it could be just a couple years, you've invested something that they're never going to forget. And it has made an impact in your heart, and you'll never forget that. And you've changed your family's legacy because of it. Now, when I got to number 5, that was a different story. I was like, yes, I'm done. Finally, I'm finished. And it wasn't because he was bad, but I'll tell you, it was a long run.
Yeah.
But yeah,
God
it can
prepares
move me
you.
to tears. And just the beauty is it doesn't end. It's a continuation of, like, Yvette, you've been to my home. There's not a day goes by that somebody isn't at my home. For some reason. It could be just to let their dog play or just to watch TV, stop by and spend the night. Last night, just recently, my daughter came over and said, hey, are the sheets in the guest room clean? I think I'm just going to spend the night. That's the beauty of what we're working toward, is having these adult children that we actually love being around.
Right. And I would imagine that once they become adults, there is some freedom in that you get to be friends with them at that point. You get to take all of those years of building that relationship, and you're no longer the authority. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't give advice and godly wisdom, but you're not the authority in their lives anymore. At that point, you get to be friends with them. It's like, you know, that goal that you're heading towards. And that's how, I really look forward to that with my girls. Because honestly, I don't want to discipline anymore. I don't, I mean, I know I have years and years left of, training their hearts and discipline and correction and, loving them, of course, through all of it. But I mean, goodness gracious, I so look forward to that day where I don't have to do that anymore. And we can just exist as adults together and be friends together. And so
it's like the fruits of your labor then, I guess, right? Like they're grown, you've come to the end of that, and it's now you get to enjoy the fruits of your labor.
Right. But okay, well, where you guys are right now is hard because your kids are trying to grow up and they're wanting more independence. They're wanting their space. They're wanting to do it on their time, and they don't always agree with you. So there's this general, that's why I wrote the book. There's this natural tension in the teen years, younger teens versus older teens, where they're trying to push and become who they're supposed to be. And you're trying to be like, no, you could face plant and really mess things up. And then when they become adults, it's a whole different story because they really can face plant and they really can mess up their life. And then you're just kind of standing on the sideline going, all right, now, if they were in the street, would I scream, get out of the street? Or do I have to watch this accident play out?
Right. Yes.
Wow.
Oh, that's tough stuff.
Thank you.
Hey, but just remember, the teen years are by design the most challenging years. And there's a rub, there is a tension. You want to give some freedom. You want them to handle the responsibility. When they handle more, when they're more responsible, they get more freedom. And then when they're irresponsible, you have to pull back. But it's not because you're the ogre. It's because you know where you're trying to go, AKA, graduation or get a job, whatever it is for your family.
Right. Yeah. Love that.
I'm writing that down. The teen years are by design the most challenging.
They are.
Is that your reminder to yourself, Abby?
I'm writing that down. This is by design. God has a plan.
By design. Amen.
So
and again, He's going to equip us with what we need.
Yes,
Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. Did you miss the 2020 Homegrown Generation Family Expo? If so, you can now have full access to the entire expo for just $10. You'll enjoy practical homeschooling encouragement, advice, and resources from many of your favorite homeschool leaders, including Kurt Cameron, Heidi St. John, Andrew Pudawa, Rachel Carmen, Dorinda Wilson, and many more. Here are just a few of the testimonials from those who have enjoyed this online conference. Rachel said, "Best homeschool conference I have ever attended. filled my soul and definitely God-driven. Katie said, "This was absolutely amazing. I've been so encouraged and blessed. The one thing that stood out to me about each session is that every single one pointed us back to Jesus, back to Him who is faithful." And another homeschool mom said, "Thank you so much for all the value provided at this price. We are a big family with a super tight budget. My husband was encouraged, the boys listened in too. A relief to find this resource at such an affordable price with so much value. Register today for lifetime access to the entire conference for only $10 at homegrowngeneration.com. That's homegrowngeneration.com. We are back with Connie. So I want to kind of, along the lines of family, I want to talk about marriage and how during all of the years of you homeschooling your kids, how did you foster a strong marriage with your husband? Because I know that even now you guys have a really good relationship with one another. And I feel like sometimes as homeschool moms, we can, our whole self is tied up in our kids because it has to be. They depend on us so much. And I never want my husband to feel like he's the least important in my family. I want him to feel like he's important. And when my girls leave our home, I want us still to have a really, really good, strong marriage with one another. And so I love that you and your husband, Connie, have that strong relationship with each other. How did you foster that through all of your years of homeschooling and raising up 5 kids?
We made it a point, and I have to praise my husband for this, because he would step in and pull me out of my role of mom, teacher, and into that role of wife and lover and all the things that drew us together and attracted us to each other before. He really initiated that a lot, because it's easy to drown when you're trying to parent and teach and dot the I's and cross the T's and, be all that. But it's got to be intentional. You have to carve out time, even if it's a little bit of time, and you got to keep fostering the reason why you said I do in the first place. Yeah. And it's very easy. And I will tell you, honestly, just between us and the millions of listeners, there comes a time when your kids have grown and they start to get established, you kind of laying in bed or you go out on a date, and sometimes you'll just look at each other and think, who are you? Because in the natural progression of aging and getting older, you change. What was super important to you when you were, in your 20s or 30s, it dims a little bit and you have new interest in your 40s. And then when you hit your 50s, it becomes even less. You change and ebb and flow. So if you foster the communication and talking to each other about why you love each other, and what a great, like for me, telling my husband how grateful I am. There would be many times he would tell me, Yvette, when I'd be complaining, because, I complain. It's like, oh, it's so hard. And he goes, yeah, I have to work all day. I'm like, okay, touche. Or if I was doing something, I just want to say, keep God first, keep your commitment first, guard, protect, and nurture it. And do not let the kids be a wedge between you, because they will play each other. They will play you against each other. Yeah. Some kids are really good at that. Right. Yeah. My kids would never do that, but
that is such good advice.
My kids would probably take score. Okay, who can get mom mad at dad?
Oh no.
That's so funny. Okay. So we've had all these deep questions. I just have to ask you, what is your number one school thing on your school supply list? What's your number one? Is it the Ticonderoga pencil? Is it a laminator? What is it? Tell us, Connie, what's the number one thing a new homeschool mom needs to get?
Abby, that's not fair, because I have 5 different kids. For my artist daughter, it was craft supplies. Okay. That's it. It was craft supplies. For my son, it was Lego sets and anything that was electronic. For my middle son, it was a video camera with software so he could make movies, and it kind of goes on from there. That's literally the mindset of a homeschool mama, is what excites and ignites the imagination, the creativity within your child.
Which goes back to knowing your kids. Keep a journal, write down things that they say and the things that make, excite them.
So good. Well, and coffee, right, Connie? And coffee for you.
I didn't drink coffee. I'm an anomaly.
You're amazing.
I'm not a coffee drinker either.
And yet you guys can still homeschool and you can do it well. What does that tell you?
Well, I mean, You kind of like get to the finish line. And then my whole thing was, Abby, what are my kids going to say? And I knew something went well when my daughter wrote her freshman 101 comp paper on why she loved homeschooling. And her professor gave her an A and said, God, I wish I could homeschool. And I'm like,
Wow.
God, we did something right. She doesn't hate me.
That is
awesome.
so awesome. That's a testimony.
It's every
me.
homeschool mom's dream.
Just understand that's not, wow, I did something amazing. It's that, wow, look what God did through obedience to him and being faithful every single day just to start over.
Yep.
So good. So good.
So kind of along that lines of what did you need in homeschooling? How did you go about choosing curriculum, and how important was your choice of curriculum when it came to your kids?
Critical.
And let me ask you in that aspect, let me ask you, how did you go about choosing curriculum with 5 different kids who learned 5 different ways?
In the elementary years, I coupled as many things together as I could. So unit studies were key for me. Read alouds were fundamental, and it had to have a biblical worldview. If we got to the end and they had these wonderful scholarships and they became rocket scientists, which I'm not saying they're not smart, but they didn't become rocket scientists, would matter not. If I only told them about God, but they didn't know God, I'd have missed the mark. That doesn't mean they're always going to aim, because we cannot raise children who follow the Lord, but we do want them to know that it's more than a religion, it's a relationship. So to your question, do as much as you can together. Math you can't do together because usually they're at a different pace. English you can do together, because while one is diagramming a sentence, the other two can the others can be listening and playing with words that are on the refrigerator or something like that. And then as they hit middle school, that's where it gets a little more tricky. You got to remember, emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually, they're developing at a different space and a different time, and the hormones are kicking in. But if you know how they learn, and like some of my bedrocks were apologia. I love apologia science. I love the conversationalism. I'm not one that pushes independent learning too quickly, because the whole goal is to learn for mastery, not learn to just say we did it. And concepts are built one upon the other. So if you can teach them and they really grasp it, it makes the next step a lot easier. High school, I start planning high school when they're in 8th grade, literally. I start looking, okay, what do we want when they're in 12th grade? And I back up all 5 years so that senior year is level 3 work, meaning high level, it looks great on a transcript, and a couple easy classes. So marine biology will go in high school while they're doing calculus, or they're doing AP composition, or they're doing anatomy and physiology, or AP government. So that's how I structure it. It's different when they're little. You have a lot more freedom and flexibility. Middle school, you start to transition and break it apart. And then high school becomes very custom and tailored to where you see their strengths, gifts, and talents, and how you see it playing out in the marketplace.
Love it. And I love that you talk about a biblical worldview. We talk about that on the podcast all the time. It is the most important thing when choosing a curriculum, especially when it comes to science and history. If it is not taught from a biblical worldview, you're not teaching it correctly. It needs to come from God's word and point our kids towards Christ. So those are fantastic. And yeah, we love Apologia as well. We are using Apologia this year. And it's interesting. My girls are almost 5 years apart, and there are several things that I can use with both of them at the same time. And it might be a little bit easy for my oldest and a little bit hard for my youngest, but somehow we're able to just kind of meet in the middle, and it works for us. And I'm very blessed that we get to do that with them. Yes. It works great. So one last question, because we only have a couple minutes left. How did you juggle your schedule with all of your kids? I mean, not like, I don't want to play by play of, 8 o'clock we woke up and did our, this, but how did you kind of juggle your schedule of homeschooling and real life and keeping your home all at the same time?
It's not compartmentalized. Homeschooling is real life. It is how we do life. And God established order and routine. There's morning and there's evening. And the sun comes up relatively around the same time for given months, and it sunsets at a given time for many months. And children learn best when there's a rhythm and routine. Not every child has the same rhythm. And when they hit high school, it's a totally different rhythm. It's like, I want to sleep till noon. But you have to integrate. This isn't compartmentalized. We are doing life. On Thursday was clean our house day in the morning so that we could be free to play on the weekends. Some people clean on the weekends and they do school hard on Monday through Friday. Don't be afraid to change things up. As every year, go before the Lord and ask, okay, what are the needs of my children right now? And then how do we teach them for right now with the given circumstances that we have and the money that we have and the time that we have and the interest that we have? Notice how I just kind of layered it all. But don't think of it as this is school and now this is clean house day and this is laundry day. It all is part of the ebb and flow of your day and helping your children adjust to a routine without pushing, driving, shoving, arguing, fighting, makes a big deal. And for us, I used to put a list on the fridge. And it's like, hey, I'm not going to be the bad guy. Just go to the list on the refrigerator. And if it is done, then great, you're good. And if not, then talk to the list. Don't yell at me. It's like you agree to it. So bring your kids into the conversation. Don't be a dictator. They're part of this and they're learning to be time managers of their life and their time. And it begins with what you do day in, day out within your own home.
Yeah, fantastic.
And that's really the freedom of homeschool. That's the beauty of the freedom of homeschool is that we can do all of these things that you're talking about. And God designed us to do it this way because it works.
Yep. Fantastic. Well, we have run out of time. I am so bummed out about that, but we are so grateful for your wisdom and your knowledge. Thank you for sharing with us today. It's so good to talk to a mom who's been there, done that. And it gives me so much encouragement to know, stay the course. Yeah. My kids are going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. We're going to get through this together by the grace of God. And it's all going to be great. In the end, I'm very excited. So Connie, thank you so much. Again, ConnieAlbers.com is where people can find out more about you. We will put that link in the show notes as well so people can find you. But I appreciate you. And Abby, thank you for joining me again today.
Thank you.
So much fun. All right. You guys have a fantastic rest of your day and we will see you back here next week. Bye.
Bye.